A very warm welcome to this video series about MBTI, which stands for Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. So we're going to step by step in each video explore firstly the 4 questions. So these 4 questions are how you recognize somebody's type. So the answers to these questions give you a 4-letter code. And that code is really for which cognitive functions you prefer to use and in which order you use them, which is manifests in what we call types or personality. But it's really about which cognitive functions that you're using. And there's 8 of them, so I'll make a video about each of those cognitive functions, which are really interesting. So this video is asking the question as the first letter of your 4 letters. Are you an extrovert or are you an introvert? So I know that many of you may already know this, but people often assume it's sort of the easiest of the 4 letters to work out. However, there are some misconceptions about it too. So I've come across people who I would definitely consider an extrovert, but because they like to enjoy a lot of time alone, they think they must be an introvert. So whether you like time alone or whether you like to be with people is not really a good way to work out which type you are, because we both enjoy both. And also at certain times of your life, or as you get older, or as you balance out your functions, an extrovert will hopefully want to spend more time being reflective. And likewise, someone who's an introvert when they're young, a good sign of their personal development is that they put themselves out in the world more. They find their voice. They have an impact. So what we're looking really is to know your natural tendency, even though we all use both and we need to use both sides. So classically, the sort of stereotypical extrovert, and there is some truth in this, but there's more to it. So classic extrovert will have a larger network of connections and friends possibly than an introvert. Introverts tend to prefer a smaller social group of closer friends. Sometimes introverts will say to me, I'm not introvert, you should see me, I can be really talkative. Absolutely. Introverts can be very talkative, but generally it will be with a smaller group of people that they know, or they might be drunk. It will be some situation where they're not their natural introvert self. They'll come out of their shell. But for an extrovert, they're kind of always out of their shell. So they naturally will connect with all sorts of random people in all places and situations. They can be shy, but generally their ability to connect with a larger group of people at any time, speak up in a group, will be a lot stronger than an introvert. So extroverts are known to talk more, introverts listen more. Extroverts tend to talk off the top of their heads. They change direction mid-sentence. They're literally thinking out loud. An introvert tend to think inside their head. They're looking for the right answer, the right thing to say. And often they miss the chance to say it if they're around extroverts. Often they have something to say, but they don't get a chance to say it because the extroverts are going for it. And they don't necessarily go for precision in communication. They use extroverted communication often as a way to brainstorm, which is very, very different from the introvert. Another thing about extroverts is because they're focused on the external world, they tend to be come up with a lot of quick solutions to things. Their brain works quickly. So, for instance, if you ask an extrovert, how do you get to such a place? They might give you 10 different options. The introvert might think about it and just give you one option which they feel is the best option. So it's a little bit like the difference between divergent thinking, tons of information, tons of ideas, whereas introverts are more convergent. They're like, what's the one right answer to the question? Another kind of indication I use more for whether someone's extrovert or introvert is their communication style. So extroverts tend to project themselves more. They use more cadence, they modulate their voice a lot more, they use their hands a lot more. In a sense, they want to draw you in, they want to be heard, and they've had their whole life doing it. So they're very good at commanding, demanding attention. Introverts, on the other hand, you kind of have to lean in to hear them. They're much more reserved, often more monotone, more soft-spoken. They're not in your face. They're kind of like pulled back into themselves and more thoughtful about the way they communicate. A good example of this is, because I teach public speaking, and of course the extroverts always think they're going to be better because they're natural improvisers. They don't even need to rehearse. But what often happens is that once they get out there in front of the group, they realize they're not prepared. And then the introvert, because of the need or the sincerity to be accurate, they prepare really well, and the speech, although it may not be as dynamic. So extroverts tend to be out there with their information, but by learning to be introverted, they can add depth to their contribution. Whereas introverts often have really well thought out philosophies about the world, but they have to learn to have an impact on the world. Like, we all need to have both. There's an importance of the self, but there's the importance of engaging with the world. So it's all about finding that balance. So if we're a natural extrovert, later on we learn to become more introverted and seek time alone. If you're an introvert, hopefully you'll learn to take whatever treasures you've been storing up inside and kind of give them to the world. Now, one thing that's really important to understand when we talk about this difference between extroversion and introversion, and that's to do with the cognitive functions. So not all extroversion looks the same. There's 4 cognitive functions which are considered extroverted functions. Only one of them is connected with people, which is extroverted feeling. So extroverted feelers are very tuned into the feeling of the people around them. So they often make great hostesses, very diplomatic peacemakers, very tuned into what's socially acceptable. And and how people perceive them. So that's their extroverted function. But there's also extroverted thinkers. They're all about getting things done in the external world. So they will be around people, but they'll be like, what can these people do for the project? Extroverted intuitors, which is what is my dominant extroverted function, is what opportunities are there in the external world. So my head will be occupied with, oh, what video can I make next? Oh, that's an interesting idea. Or what can I do with this blank slate? So I can have a tendency to be focused on the external world, but that doesn't necessarily mean I want to be surrounded by people all the time. I seek solitude. Yeah, so you might be, if you're an extroverted intuitor like myself, you might make the mistake of thinking you're introverted, but that's because you need a lot of time to think about your ideas and then filter them through your introverted function, which in my case would be introverted feeling. How do I feel about all these ideas? Yeah, so, and then there's our extroverted sensing. So extroverted sensors love to be doing things physically, like sports and dancing and movement and in the now, in the body, in the external world. So they have a lot of physical energy and become expert in that area. So you can see how they'll all be extroverts or focused on the external world, but not all in the same way that we think about the party, social, chatty all the time type of extroversion. So, and in the same way, the introverted functions also don't all look the same. So for an introvert, they like they're comfortable being with themselves, but what are they doing in their inner world? So an introverted feeler will be always thinking about, well, is this my true destiny, my true purpose is aligned with my values and my conscience, and how do I feel about this thing? And it's a very subjective analysis of life. And then you've got introverted thinkers, and they're basically looking for the truth. They'll be very much looking at analyzing their own beliefs. Is it true? Does it make sense? Is it logical? They're like truth seekers. And then you've got introverted intuitors. They're looking for inner patterns, and often in the world of imagination and almost psychic projection into the future. And introverted sensing, they take information from the world and reflect on it, and often are very good at making small improvements to how they interact with the physical world. And if you don't have that function, which I have it as a kind of a weaker function, it means you're often so busy you don't reflect on your experience, so you can make the mistakes again and again. Whereas an introverted sensor will spend a lot of time in their own head, kind of reflecting on what happened, and memories. They have good memories, and they try to improve from what they learn. So we don't all extrovert in the same way, and we don't all introvert in the same way. And if you're an extrovert, you will have an auxiliary, a support function, which is introvert. And if you're an introvert, you'll have one which is extrovert. So you're going to be using both. So that's why it's not as simple as, likes to be alone, likes to be around people. However, if your dominant function is an extrovert one, it means that you essentially are more comfortable, feel yourself, more yourself, when you're interacting with the external world, and it will be harder for you to sit still and reflect. There's some things like writing a diary, there's some ways that extroverts can kind of learn to be more reflective, but it's harder for them to slow down. Often they suffer from burnout, from overwhelm, from being too involved in the external world, and neglect their own inner feeling and how their body feels until they get run down. An introvert, the way that they can understand if they're out of balance is that, they like to spend time in their inner world. They can get lost in their inner world to the neglect of relationships, of their finances, of their career. They don't want to put themselves out there. And if they don't learn to, the outer world will come at them in terms of issues that kind of need solving. Likewise, an external person, extroverted person, their inner world will start to call them inside if they don't give it that attention. Quite an interesting example that someone used for the difference. They said extroverts are like insects. All right, what do they mean by that? So an insect will have hundreds of babies. If you think of a spider, boom, it's like hundreds of spiders, yeah? So that's what an extrovert will do. They put themselves out in the world. They will know lots of people, lots of projects, lots going on. An introvert, they said, was more like an elephant. They'll have one baby elephant and they'll protect that elephant. So their sort of survival strategy or comfortable strategy is to narrow down their interests or their safe space or their love to a few things. Often introverts, for that reason, can become really expert at mastering whatever they're really interested in, whereas extroverts will become like jack of all trades, master of none. They'll often know a lot of people, know a lot of topics, be able to connect lots of dots and lots of people together to make things happen. But they often will possibly lack the patience to, for instance, orchestras are filled with introverts. So to master an instrument to that degree, it really takes a lot of love of solitude and possibly introverted sensing, like improving the way that you use the senses over a long time, that sort of function. So I really want to emphasize that we all have and use extroverted and introverted functions. So what you're really looking for when you're looking for your letter is which one of those worlds you're more comfortable in. And for me, probably the shortcut that I do use if I haven't got time to work out or ask enough questions, I will look at the person's communication style. So when they communicate, do you see that rise in energy and expressiveness? They want to get the point across. They'll lean into you, modulate their voice a lot, jump around over different ideas, think out loud, interrupt people. I've got a story to tell you. And classically, introverts have a more sort of reserved energy. They'll think before they speak. They tend not to interrupt as much. There's more of a control or a precision in the way that they talk, and they tend to be a bit calmer. Even that is not always reliable. I can sometimes speak like an introvert, but most of you will recognize that I definitely have an extroverted style of communication. And likewise, introverts can sometimes learn or be the life of the party and tell a great story, but it won't be all the time, and it will tend to be when they're more comfortable. So I'm going to show you a series of videos. So if you've had enough and you think you know what you are, you can stop now and comment in the comments section which one you think you are. I'd be very curious to learn more people's types. But I'm going to show you some videos that I use in my public courses to show the difference between extroverted and introverted types. And particularly with these 4 videos, I'm showing someone who's extroverted task-focused and extroverted people-focused, and then introverted task-focused and introverted people-focused. So there's even difference in the styles of introversion and extroversion in the videos. So let's look at the first one.
No one would pay to see you perform.
I know a lot of people who'd pay at least a tenner to see me.
I know a lot of people who'd pay not to hear you. There is as much chance of you being a pop star or a rock star as me flying to the moon tomorrow morning for breakfast. It's never going to happen, Raj. You couldn't win this competition if you were the only person in it in a million years.
So I think most of you would have guessed that Simon Cowell is not an introvert. He's an extrovert, and he's task-oriented. So his dominant external cognitive function would be extroverted thinking, empire building, projects. What can you do for me? I'm looking for the star and it's not you. I'm not going to waste my breath on you. You're not worth the waste of my time. So they're very much about efficiency and effectiveness in the world. And of course his style is not shy. He's not holding back. So classic extrovert. So let's have a look at the second video.
Just to wrap up, I wanted to say that it feels to me that design is about solving problems and providing elegant solutions. And information design is about solving information problems. And it feels like we have a lot of information problems in our society at the moment, from the overload and the saturation to the breakdown of trust and reliability and runaway skepticism and lack of transparency, or even just interestingness. I mean, I find information just too interesting. It has a magnetic quality that draws me in. So visualizing information can give us a very quick solution to those kinds of problems. And even when the information is terrible, the visual can be quite beautiful. And often we can get clarity or the answer to a simple question very quickly, like this one.
So what makes this speaker appear to me to be introverted is his monotone. He also, I've watched the whole video, and it's a really interesting video. I recommend watching it. It's all about data and visualizing data and understanding data better through the uses of visualization. So essentially his topic is factual data. He also mentions in the video spending a lot of hours working on just one of these illustrations, like literally weeks accumulating the information for it. So a lot of patience with detail. But in terms of his delivery, which is what we're looking at particularly, is that monotone delivery, quiet wittiness, which comes out in the whole video, and not particularly talking about himself, but like, here's the information. Okay, so let's look at the next video.
One day I woke up with 3 days until the deadline, still not having written a word, and so I did the only thing I could. I wrote 90 pages over 72 hours, pulling not one but 2 all-nighters. Humans are not supposed to pull 2 all-nighters. Sprinted across campus, dove in slow motion, and got it in just at the deadline. I thought that was the end of everything. But a week later, I get a call. And it's the school. And they say, "Is this Tim Urban?" And I say, "Yeah." And they say, "We need to talk about your thesis." And I say, "Okay." And they say, "It's the best one we've ever seen." That did not happen. It was a very, very bad thesis. I just wanted to enjoy that one moment when all of you thought, "This guy is amazing." No, it was very, very bad.
So obviously another extrovert. What I find most interesting about this speaker is the content of his subject. It's about procrastination. And certain extrovert types will be procrastinators because they know they can wing it, yeah? Extroverts, very fast thinkers, so they think they can get away with waiting to the last minute and then just winging it. Often they can't. It can get them in trouble. Often they can, which is why they rely on it, but sometimes when it really matters, they can't do it. And that's where they need to learn to prepare more. But his delivery, his timing, his humor, his storytelling, these are all very much the style of an extroverted communicator.
Yes, but that's taking time because I don't want to dive into something without being able to follow it up. Nothing would upset me more than just being a name on a top of a piece of paper and not showing any interest at all. Hopefully the organisations I'm involved with see me 2 or 3 times a year if the times, I can do it, I can fit it in. I just would long to help in all sorts of areas.
So our lovely Princess Diana, so her style of communication, introverted, softly spoken, thoughtful. So that's some examples, maybe extreme examples. If you want to improve at it, just observe people around you and kind of try to watch these traits and figure out which one you think people are. I sometimes take a guess and then ask people if they've actually done their MBTI, and it's fun when you get it right. If it's not, it kind of makes me think more about the topic and ask more questions and learn a bit more about that person. So thanks for joining, and please do tune into the next video, which is about the difference between are you an intuitive or a sensor, and what that means. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Bye for now. Have a great day. One last comment that if at this point after the video you're still really not sure whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, I would say just don't worry too much at this point. We'll go through the whole series, especially the next 3 questions. So if you're sure about other ones, at least we can kind of put those in place. And then often based on the ones that you do know, we can look at 2, 3, even 4 different types, just rearranging some of the letters and see which one is a better fit. Because when you do find the one that is the right fit, it will fit like a glove. Yeah, you'll recognize they're quite different. So even if it's just one letter difference, it makes a big difference in the cognitive functions that you're actually going to be using. So just be patient and we'll try and figure it out as we go along. But I hope that at least most of you are sure or pretty sure which one you are at this point.